Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Sharon Ledwith here, and I'm an emotional wellness coach here in Ireland, helping you create those changes that you deserve in all aspects of your life. So I'm going to do a video today based on why we do things in a certain way, why the body reacts in a certain way, especially to anxieties, to worries, to fears, or any stressful situation. I believe that the more that we understand how the body works, how the mind works, and how it reacts with the body, then, when we're in these heightened situations, when we have that awareness and we're going into these heightened situations, that we have that knowledge, we understand kind of what's going on in that moment, and then we can, emotionally regulate our nervous system. We can bring our nervous system down, and we can, again, emotionally regulate in a positive way. So I'm going to use a couple of things, that's going to help me explain it a little bit more to you. And I want to talk to you today about your prefrontal cortex, your limbic system, and your amygdala. So if we take this here as your prefrontal cortex. So this is your prefrontal cortex, and your prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational thinking. It's for problem solving. And it's all your prior stored knowledge. So it's all prior knowledge, and your prefrontal cortex brings all of that knowledge forward when it's needed. Now, your prefrontal cortex is very reasonable, so we can reason with it, and it's quite slow. So then under that, what you have is your limbic system. And your limbic system then is connected to your parasympathetic system and your sympathetic nervous system. So this is where, again, when it's connected to your nervous system, when we go into fight response, then obviously things are heightened. So it's, again, sent to the nervous system, and things are heightened. So then we have our amygdala, and your amygdala is the alarm of your brain. So from the minute that we're born to the time that we pass away, your amygdala is always on. So it's always scanning. It's always scanning. It really just wants to keep you safe. So it's like, how do I keep Sharon safe? How do I keep Sharon safe? Every day. Every day it does the same thing. It's not always heightened, it's scanning sometimes. But if we've had prior threats or perceived threats, then it will be a little bit more heightened. But I'll explain that in a few minutes. So your amygdala is always on. All it wants to do is to protect you. It's always scanning. What do I see? What do I feel? What do I sense? What do I smell? What do I taste? So it's scanning. How am I going to keep Sharon safe? So it's looking around every day. What do I see? What do I feel? What do I sense? What do I smell? What do I taste? So we can always trust our amygdala to send a signal and information to the body if it perceives a threat, if it senses or perceives a threat. So what happens then? What happens when the amygdala perceives a threat or senses a threat? So when the amygdala perceives or senses a threat, your prefrontal cortex, so this prefrontal cortex here, flips the lid. So the prefrontal cortex completely flips the lid. So open then is your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. So we're heightened. And then when that flips the lid, like the old saying, when that flips the lid and goes totally offline, we go into that heightened state. So when we're in that heightened state, and when we're in that experience, so if we call it an experience, when we're in that experience 1 million times faster than any thought that you can think, you're triggered into your brainstem. You're triggered right into the brainstem, where which is, again, obviously your the primal part of your brain. You're triggered into a fight, flight, freeze response. So the flight is in that experience, in that moment, before you can even have a thought, and all the thoughts come up after that. But in that experience, so quickly, you're brought into that fight, flight, freeze response. So what can happen in that state? So if it's in a fight, you'll either fight, or react in that moment. And sometimes we see it with arguments. Sometimes we see it, if we have to stand up for ourselves, we will go into this state. Then we've got the flight. So again, it literally means that we just got to get out of there. We have to leg it. We have to really get out of that situation really quickly. Now remember, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system is flaring off here again. So everything is heightened. So that anxiety, that worries, those fears, they're all coming up. They're all coming into the primal part of the brain, and we're not feeling okay right now. We are not feeling okay right now. So then you've got your freeze response. So it's like you're either stuck to the ground, in that freeze response, and you're taking everything on, really the peripheral, you're not really taking much on because you're stuck in that moment. Or it's kind of like, you're just going to stand there and wait for everything to hopefully pass away. So that's when you're triggered in, and that's how we're triggered in a stressful situation. I'm just going to use this toy as another example of, what happens then when it happens over time. So our amygdala, which is, very important to us, and which is really, so important, and we need it. So, if a car was coming down the road, so if I was crossing the road and there was a car or a bus coming, and my amygdala is just scanning for any perceived or any sense of perceived threat, as soon as that would happen, I would go into that, it would trigger me into that fight, flight, freeze response, and it would give me enough adrenaline and cortisol and whatever I needed to run as fast as I could to get across that road to keep me safe. So that is natural, and your fight, flight, freeze response is only supposed to be temporary. So we're not supposed to be in a heightened state all the time. It's supposed to be very temporary for allowing us, to again stay safe in certain situations. So what's happened over time with anxieties, worries and fears, your amygdala, so as soon as we go into a stress response, all the cortisol, the adrenaline, all the thoughts, the worries, the fears, everything, goes up into the mind, and it's again like that thing with the prefrontal cortex, it flips the lid. So we're stuck then with all of this heightenedness, in the body, in the mind, and it takes, dependent, but it takes on average around 2 hours for that to come back down. So again, it's supposed to be temporary. Our amygdala is supposed to be able to come back down here and say, okay, you know what, I'm safe, back into what do I see, what do I sense, what do I taste, what do I smell. So it's supposed to go back down like this. But if we can imagine sometimes the states that we're living in, so a lot of people who will come to me with anxiety, with worries, refer to the panic attack, and they have experienced this, as the amygdala will see it as a threat. They will experience this every day. Some people will come to me and say, Sharon, I wake up anxious. So again, the minute that you open your eyes, your amygdala, and we have those thoughts of what's going to happen today. I hope I'm okay. I hope my kids are okay. I hope everything's okay. Money, whatever, whatever our stressors are. When we're opening our eyes and we are thinking in that state, then of course your amygdala is going to sense it straight away, and it's going to put you in that fight, flight, freeze energy for the day. Now, it might come down, but it won't, over time, it won't go back to that nice scanning, because it'll already be heightened, and it'll be like, oh, well, I know this feeling now. So it'll be more pushing from that. And you can already feel the energy of the amygdala looking for something more heightened. And then again, we go into that stressful situation. It might just take one, when we talk about pathological emotions, but I'll do a video on that, the anger, the guilt, the shame, the sadness, the fear. And we've got this pressure cooker just down here in our stomach. We've got this pressure cooker of emotions that when we're, triggered into that primal part of our brain, everything goes off. You might think of things that happened 30 years ago, so everything goes off, and it's an accumulation then with adrenaline, cortisol, all of these, hormones and everything else that, again, goes into the body that heightens us. And your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system is gone off the Richter scale. That's why then, something that's supposed to take maybe 20 minutes, if it's just small perceived threats, is taking 2 hours, maybe 4 hours. Some people can be in panic, all day. There are some people who are in that heightened state all day, every day. So you can see then, over time, where we're going then, with the anxiety, the worries, the fear, where your amygdala then is really on high it's nearly always looking for that threat because we're bringing up that emotion with it. So again, going back in here to the stomach, so that all these emotions, these are in here like a pressure cooker. The valve is here, just like the prefrontal cortex. When that flips that lid, or when that flips that lid, and it goes offline, very exactly what this does, boom, everything comes up to the surface. So everything comes up to the surface, and it just takes us that little bit longer to release it down. So again, it's just to have that awareness that what happens. So it's not just, people come to me and say, Sharon, I was okay. There was nothing bothering me. I was there, and the next minute I had a panic attack. It's not that simple. We have to get to a state, we have to get to a state where, the amygdala is on high dose. So something else had to happen, maybe yesterday, maybe the day before. And remember, we've got 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. We're only catching 5% of them. 95 is playing a story. So when we say that, I was there and then I just automatically had a panic attack, we have to look at kind of like what was going on the week before. What am I thinking? Am I sleeping? Am I emotionally able to regulate myself in these situations? Because if I'm not, then that shows me that people are really, really like, the amygdala is just bouncing really, really like, again, it's probably like pressure, and people will say it, I had a headache, or, I felt sick in my stomach, or there was pressure on my chest. These are all, this is how the body tells us when it's gone into the nervous system. It tells us, how heightened we are. Now, the good news is that we can emotionally regulate ourselves. The more awareness that we have, the more that we can emotionally regulate ourselves. So I will do a couple of videos. I just wanted to get that video out there. If anybody's got any questions or wants me to kind of add a bit onto it, then I will. But I just really want you to know that your amygdala is looking out for you every single day. It wants to keep you safe, but it's all of these unresolved emotions, and we have to start looking at our stuff. We really have to start looking at our stuff. It's not that we have to delve into every trauma, every pathological emotion we have, but we have to start clearing out, we have to open this valve and start clearing out, this pressure cooker, because over time it might just take that one situation that you might say, oh my God, I don't even know how it happened, Sharon. I was like, I'm usually always, on the ball. And that can be one thing, like when we're not in control and we're just ready to flip that lid, we could be put into that. If we've unhealed trauma, or again, unhealed trauma, or if we have, any of those pathological emotions, even down to lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, if we've got them and they're flaring up all the time, you've been triggered into that primal part of the brain all the time, then 110% you're going to be in a stress response, and your fight, flight, freeze over time leads to chronic fatigue. It leads absolutely to pain. What goes up must come down, so we'll be in more probably heightened state when we're in it, and then when we come back down, we've plummeted. And then that's when we go into that low vibration, and we just can't seem to pull ourselves out of it. So I won't give you any more information on that, but again, I want to leave it there, but I do want you to understand that, it's just not this thing that happens. It's built up over time, and the more awareness that you have, the next time, that something is quite anxious, you can breathe into that, you can really breathe into it and say, okay, I know what's happening here. My prefrontal cortex has just gone off center, so my parasympathetic and my sympathetic nervous system, so what's happening there is you're putting in oxidative stress into the body, and then your amygdala has sensed that perceived threat, and it has just again, triggered you into your primal part of the brain, which again will send a stress response, which you can breathe into it, have that awareness, and allow the nervous system to relax in. But I will give you some tools to do that. I know it's not as easy to say it that way, but I will give you some tools. I will do a couple of videos on some tools to start to bring this down, and again, it takes a bit of time, but you can bring it down into a nice natural state, and I will do some more videos on that. So hope you enjoyed that, and again, as I say, if you've got any information or anything else that you want to know, just give me a shout. Okay, thank you.